I'm Abigail,
And I'm Keith.
and you're listening to the Global Treasures Podcast. We'll cover different World Heritage sites each episode
These sites have been identified as having outstanding universal value.
because they have cultural and/or natural significance that is so exceptional that it transcends national boundaries and is of importance to present and future generations.
There are 1,199 sites in 168 countries across the world, with more being added every single year.
We'll spend each episode exploring the history, legends, travel tips, and so much more.
Welcome to Season 2, where we will explore the 45 sites that UNESCO added in 1979.
If you would like to support the show, you can subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube and TikTok. In this episode, Keith and I will be introducing you to Everglades National Park in the state of Florida, which is located in the United States of America.
Deep in the southern tip of Florida lies a vast, watery wilderness, the Everglades National Park. Spanning a staggering 1.5 million acres, with 1.4 million acres designated as UNESCO World Heritage Site, this park protects about 20% of the original Everglades ecosystem in the state. It actually stands as the third largest national park in the contiguous United States, surpassed only by the grandeurs of Death Valley and Yellowstone. And just a quick note, if you want to learn more about Yellowstone, check out Season 1, Episode 12. The Everglades is truly a crown jewel, hailed as the largest designated subtropical wilderness reserve on the North American continent and the largest wilderness of any kind east of the Mississippi River. Its unique landscape has been poetically described as a river of grass flowing imperceptibly from the hinterland to the sea. Within this vast expanse, a remarkable convergence of subtropical and temperate wildlife species thrives, found nowhere else in the United States. The majority of South Florida's fresh water, stored in the Biscayne Aquifer, is recharged right here in the park. It is a juncture where fresh and brackish waters meet, fed by a network of wetlands and forests, nourished by a river that flows a mere quarter-mile per day from Lake Okeechobee, meandering southwest over towards Florida Bay.
The Everglades boasts the largest mangrove ecosystem in the Western Hemisphere and the largest continuous stand of sawgrass prairie. Its exceptional variety of water habitats is truly awe-inspiring, encompassing vast subtropical wetlands, freshwater marshes, tropical hardwood hammocks, pine rocklands, extensive mangrove forests, saltwater marshes, and seagrass ecosystems that are vital to commercial and recreational fisheries.
This sanctuary is a haven for remarkable diversity of bird and reptile species, serving as the most significant breeding ground for wading birds in North America. It provides a safe haven for threatened species like the manatee, and its complex biological processes showcase an intricate food chain, from basic algal associations up through progressively higher species, culminating in apex predators such as the alligator, crocodile, and the elusive Florida panther. The geological origins of this remarkable landscape can be traced back eons, when Florida was actually once part of the African portion of the supercontinent Gondwana. After separating from that ancient landmass, the shallow marine environment allowed for massive deposits of calcium carbonate in the form of sand, shells, and coral to accumulate and then be converted into limestone. Tiny bits of shell, sand, and bryozoans compressed over multiple layers, forming structures called oids that created a permeable condition ideal for holding water. The Everglades rests upon this vast, nearly flat seabed that was submerged at the end of the last ice age. Though appearing level at first glance, the limestone bedrock is subtly punctuated by slight rises called pinnacles and depressions caused by erosion. The amount of water present throughout the year determines which two types of soil would dominate. Peat, created by years of decaying plant matter and flooding for over 9 months annually, sometimes even full years. Or marl, a grayish mud resulting from dried chunks of algae and microorganisms in areas flooded for 6 months or less throughout the year. This limestone substrate is one of the most active areas of modern carbonate sedimentation on the entire Earth. No underground springs feed water into the Everglades. Instead, an immense underground reservoir called the Floridan Aquifer lies about 1,000 feet below the surface. The Everglades permeable limestone grants it an immense capacity for this water storage, with most water arriving as rainfall. Evaporation from the Everglades even brings rain over metropolitan areas, providing fresh water for the region. So water overflows from Lake Okeechobee into a river that's as wide as 70 miles, moving at an imperceptibly slow pace as it meanders through the River of Grass towards Florida Bay. This vast river of grass that carves its path through the Everglades is no ordinary watercourse. It flows not over soil or rock like most rivers, but atop the porous limestone foundation that underlies this entire ecosystem. This limestone acts like a gigantic natural filter and a reservoir, absorbing, storing, and slowly re-releasing the water that is the lifeblood of the Everglades.
The complex dance between water and limestone has created an astounding variety of microhabitats across the Everglades. Shrimp, sawgrass, mangroves, orchids, and alligators all owe their existence to the finely balanced interactions between fresh and salt water, flooded and dry conditions enabled by this complex geological gem.
From the sawgrass marshes in the north through the mangrove forests of the coastal estuaries, this is a true liquid landscape. With water levels fluctuating over just a few precious feet in elevation, the entire ecosystem ebbs and flows in time with the seasonal rains and drought cycles. Within this watery wilderness thrives an incredible diversity of life, carefully adapted to the rhythms of flood and drought. The Everglades provides a vital habitat for 36 threatened or protected species, including that elusive Florida panther, the resilient American crocodile, and the gentle, lumbering West Indian manatee. The park is actually an avian paradise, hosting over 350 species of birds. From the spectacular displays of nesting roseate spoonbills and great blue herons to the acrobatic swoops of white-crowned pigeons, this subtropical wetland is one of the most significant bird refuges on the entire continent. Beneath the surface of the shallow marshes and muddy banks, over 300 species of fresh and saltwater fish call this park home, including species like the endangered small-toothed sawfish. The waterways harbor a kaleidoscope of biodiversity, with 40 species of mammals like the marsh rabbit and the river otter, and 50 reptilian species such as the eastern diamondback rattlesnake. The landscape we know today as the Everglades is remarkably young in geological terms. The Florida peninsula itself only emerged above sea level between about 100,000 and 150,000 years ago. As the Wisconsin Ice Age drew to a close and sea levels rose, Lake Okeechobee began flooding the surrounding wetlands, creating that vast river of grass I spoke about. Among the first human inhabitants were the Tequesta and Calusa tribes, dating back 10,000 to 20,000 years. With only soft limestone to work with, these resourceful natives crafted tools from shells, bones, wood, and sharpened shark teeth that served as blades. Though their numbers may have reached 20,000 by the late 1500s, unfortunately disease, warfare, and slavery brought about their eradication, leaving only scattered shell mounds as evidence of their existence. The wetlands we know today began taking shape about 5,000 years ago, when peat deposits show regular flooding occurred south of Lake Okeechobee. Tropical plant species migrated down from northern Florida, while tropical species arrived as seeds in the pouches of birds from the Caribbean islands. In the early 19th century, displaced Creeks, escaped African slaves, and other Native American groups formed the Seminole Nation here, making this unforgiving yet sheltering wilderness their home. After the Seminole Wars, a few hundred hunters and scouts remained in the Big Cypress area, establishing the Miccosukee and modern Seminole tribes whose lives remained intertwined with the Everglades for generations. As American settlers pushed further south in the late 1800s, plans were hatched to drain the Everglades for development. Communities like the Chokoloskee Island and Flamingo established outposts on the dry grounds. The Tamiami Trail, begun in 1928, opened up the interior Everglades like never before.
Even as the 20th century ushered in more construction projects, diverting water for agricultural and urban use. A growing voice called to preserve the Everglades. The 1916 creation of Royal Palm State Park to protect Paradise Key was an early victory, followed by the establishment of Everglades National Park in 1934 to rescue the River of Grass from vanishing entirely. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas's 1947 book, The Everglades, River of Grass, helped bring in national support, and the park's official dedication that December stood in stark contrast to the canal-building frenzy unfolding across southern Florida. For decades, the battle raged between conservationists hoping to preserve the Everglades' fragile ecosystems and developers hungry to drain more wetlands. A proposed airport that could have destroyed huge swaths of the park was finally abandoned in 1972, and landmark legislation later that decade saw the Everglades earn the highest protections. It was designated a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in 1976, a World Heritage Site in 1979, and a Wetland of International Importance in 1987.
The 1989 Everglades National Park Protection and Expansion Act added 171 square miles to the eastern side while also banning airboats in the park. This set the stage for a massive replumbing effort. In 2000, United States Congress approved the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, or CERP, which was an ambitious $8 billion undertaking aiming to reestablish the natural water flow. CERP has remained controversial. Critics argue it subsidizes further damaging development, overlooks water quality issues, and relies on uncertain technologies that delay environmental benefits. Supporters like the National Audubon Society commend CERP's integrated approach to undoing decades of hydrological destruction. Whether or not CERP ultimately succeeds remains to be seen, but the story of the Everglades is one of resilience against nearly being erased by human ambition. From the departure of its original inhabitants to the 20th century onslaught of human engineering run amok, this vast watery wilderness has developed an uncanny knack for survival and rejuvenation.
Perhaps the Everglades' greatest restoration still lies ahead, a return to the intricate splendor of natural rhythms. As one of the world's most celebrated wetlands and an international dark sky park, the River of Grass continues inspiring all who bear witness to its subtle beauty. While the Everglades story is one of resilience against human ambition, it's also a tale filled with amusing anecdotes and jaw-dropping facts. Here's some factoids that'll make you smarter than the average tourist when you visit. For instance, did you know this vast wetland wilderness is one of the largest in the world, yet only half the size it used to be? It contains the largest protected contiguous stand of mangrove forests in the entire northern hemisphere. So vast are these mazes that one could easily get turned around and lost in them for days on end.
And speaking of prospects that unnerve, the Everglades is the only place on Earth where you'll find American alligators and crocodiles coexisting in the wild. I can't imagine coming face to face with both these species of apex predator on the same excursion. It's kind of enough to make even the most avid reptile enthusiast feel a little shiver of caution. Sadly, however, humans have introduced their own dangerous predator, the Burmese python. These invasive constrictors, likely all escaped or released pets originally, have established a breeding population that is wreaking havoc. Some scientists have estimated pythons have caused a 90 to 99% drop in small mammal populations. The fight is on to control their spread before more damage is done. And while the pythons spell potential trouble, there are less threatening yet no less entertaining characters in the Everglades. It's 80-plus mosquito species. But don't worry, not all of them dine on human blood. But those that do serve as excellent motivation to pick up a bunch of insect repellent before you go and visit. For all its inhospitable pests and roaming reptiles, though, the Everglades provides the precious gift of water that actually sustains over 8 million Floridians. This vast river of grass, so evocatively dubbed by conservationist Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, is an ecosystem hydraulic engine supporting a massive human population. So whether you find the Everglades charming or chilling, sublimely beautiful or substantially important, one thing is certain. It's a place of unparalleled superlatives and eye-opening revelations around every sawgrass bend. So, let's talk about how to get there and maybe some tips and tricks to make your trip unforgettable. Abigail, this is your section. What'd you find out?
Okay, it's travel time. So, you'll want to fly into Miami International Airport, which is the major airport in the area. In terms of getting into the park itself, you have to pay for an entrance pass. Digital passes can be purchased in advance online. There are discounts available for seniors and those living with disabilities, but the regularly priced passes are pretty inexpensive as is.
Are there different types of passes and tours available?
Yeah, if you plan on going to other national parks throughout the year, you may want to get an America the Beautiful pass. So, some of the different types of guided tours available include tram tours, educational tours via the Everglades Institute, airboat tours, photography tours, and more. Some are conducted by park rangers, while some are led by authorized tour guides or companies that are permitted by the Park Service. You can go on the National Park Service site to find a list of vetted, legitimate tour companies and guides. A note about the weather. From May to October, there may be lots of rain and it's very hot and humid. Think 90 degrees Fahrenheit and above, so make sure you dress appropriately.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I've been to Florida many times in the summer. It can be brutal as far as weather. All right, so you spoke about the America the Beautiful Pass, and with that in mind, what are you recommending bundling with this site for those who don't want to trek to Disney or Universal Studios or even Miami?
Interesting you bring up Miami. So, a lot of people stay in the city of Homestead, which has some hotel options. However, Miami really is the place to be. They have hundreds of hotels, thousands of really nice restaurants to check out as well. And if you love the beach or love to party, Miami is a great pit stop that's only an hour away. If you want to stay in the park proper, you can go glamping on site. And, side note, Everglades City also hosts the annual Seafood Festival, which gets over 50,000 visitors annually on average.
Glamping. Glamorous camping. Think $500,000 RVs and fully stocked quote-unquote cabins. So with that in mind, how many visitors does the park get each year?
About 1 million.
Yeah, 1 million. That makes sense considering how important the site is. All right, let's segue to the conspiracy theories and urban legends section of the episode. This is a national park, so there's already a ton to consider. What else did you dig up other than the normal stuff?
Well, as always, this is a national park. And you know what that means if you've listened to previous episodes. But if not, I'll recap. So many people believe that national parks are dumping grounds for serial killers operating in the area because they tend to be wooded or secluded and have animals that'll eat their remains. The Everglades is definitely not an exception given the alligator population. Over the years, police, tourists, and residents have come across grisly bodies that were disposed of in a gruesome way in the Everglades. Bodies that have been shot, stabbed, or burned, and have all been found in the water. And many of these cases have been left unsolved. Part of the reason is bodies being submerged in water for long durations causes several changes due to temperatures, currents, and interactions with animals such as alligators. Since 1965, there have been more than 175 unsolved cases in the Everglades, and those are only the bodies that have actually been found.
Yikes. This is definitely part of the national parks that I don't like. So how about the supernatural stuff or legends? I'm guessing ghosts, aliens, anything like that?
Yes, and I would just add that while we can't prove that there's a serial killer operating in the area, you should definitely be careful and consider not going alone. So the next on the roster is a ghostly legend. There was a plantation owner and serial killer by the name of Edgar Watson, who was gunned down in the swamplands of the Everglades by the Chokoloskee townsfolk in 1910. Watson murdered many of his black servants and would kill anyone who was trespassing on his land. Per some tourists, Watson never left Rabbit Key, the island within the Everglades where he was killed. There's a nearby museum that's reported bizarre occurrences of poltergeist-like activity. Staff and guests have reported motion detectors going off randomly. Shadows lurking through the general store after hours have been noted as well. If I visit the park in the future, I think I'll be staying away from Rabbit Key. But if you're a ghost hunter, this might be the place for you.
Yep, as usual, that's pretty creepy. Nice job on that. All right, so let's transition to the preservation piece. I know in my research that this has been a pretty charged issue, and there are several sides to the work of preserving the Everglades. I also know, as I mentioned before, that there's some invasive species wreaking havoc. So what are the government, local folks, and international groups doing to preserve this gem?
Well, like you said, there are some issues faced keeping this park safe. This includes issues related to water quality and changes to distribution of inflows that have also been well documented, and these have had serious impacts on the native wildlife and vegetation. So, since the 1800s, water diversions and flood control projects have severed the flow of water between different parts of the Everglades, and areas of land were converted into residential areas. Water is diverted in upstream areas to provide flood protection and a reliable water supply for the expanding population in southern Florida. In the northern wetlands of the park, reduced inflows have caused a loss that is required to support the fish and aquatic life, as well as the bird populations. Increased salinity in Florida Bay due to reduced freshwater has contributed to changes in submerged aquatic vegetation, declines in certain types of fish, and the spread of algal blooms. The park is also experiencing the introduction of non-native species, which you may have heard about on the news, including the Burmese python, which has proliferated in the park. This disrupts the natural predator-prey dynamic and can be dangerous for tourists who may be attacked by these animals. Also, loss of organic soil across park habitats due to wildfires and other factors occurred during and after the major elements of the water management system were constructed between in the early to mid-1900s. Although hurricanes are naturally occurring in this region, these uncontrollable storms can damage the already strained ecosystem. All of that said, there is a multi-billion-dollar restoration plan in place, so I believe much of this can be stopped in its tracks or even reversed. I have high hopes for this park and highly recommend visiting if you're in the Sunshine State.
All right, well, let's hope that this fragile and incredibly important system can be saved and even brought back. All right, so thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Global Treasures Podcast. Just a quick note about our show. Abigail and I truly believe in what we're doing here to spread the word of these UNESCO sites and simply love sharing this with you. If you also think this is important, kindly consider leaving us a 5-star written review with maybe a message saying why. This helps others who may not even know about the UNESCO's program of World Heritage Sites find this podcast and learn of these treasures. It also lets our providers know that people find value in what we're doing here. Thank you. We know it takes time to write these, and we value each and every one. We're so grateful to every one of our listeners who spread the word about these sites. We can't wait to see you next time when we take you to Fasil Gebi in Ethiopia.